I was speaking with a tech analyst recently who was absolutely fixated on one thing, the NVIDIA H200.
Ah, the wonder chip.
Exactly. He treated this piece of American silicon like a religious artifact, convinced that because the US has the fastest, most sophisticated chips, the AI race is effectively over.
Very common perspective.
He kept pointing to the export controls, laughing about how China is stuck using second-rate hardware, effectively locked out of the future. To him, the metrics of processing speed were the only numbers that matter.
Right, the spec sheet is everything.
But then we looked at a different set of data, and the confidence in the room just evaporated. It wasn't about computing power, it was about the electricity bill.
The operational cost. The boring part.
The boring but critical part.
Mm-hmm.
While we've been staring at the microchip, Beijing has been quietly mobilizing something much larger and far less sexy, the electrical grid.
The foundation for everything.
There are reports now of local Chinese governments walking into data centers and offering a staggering 50% discount on power, but only if they agree to use domestic inferior chips.
Which completely rewrites the equation.
It creates this bizarre, counterintuitive reality. We're over here waiting a decade just to get permits for a new power plant in Virginia, choked by red tape, while they are simply flooding the zone with cheap, state-subsidized energy to make their weaker technology economically viable.
It's a structural play, not a component play.
It forces you to rethink the whole scorecard. We thought this was a battle of wits and engineering genius. But looking at these energy subsidies, it's starting to look a lot more like a grinding war of attrition. And it begs the question, does it matter if we have the Ferrari of chips, if we can't build the power plants to run them?
And that narrative shift, that exact shift from silicon supremacy to infrastructure leverage, is precisely what we need to get into today.
It feels like the whole game is changing under our feet.
It is. Our mission in this deep dive is to move past that obsession with raw chip performance and really analyze China's pioneering AI plus energy industrial strategy.
Okay, AI plus energy.
Yeah. We're looking beyond the headlines of computing speed to understand how Beijing is strategically integrating its vast, state-guided, and heavily subsidized energy infrastructure with its national AI development goals.
So this isn't just a reaction to sanctions?
No, not at all. This isn't just a response to Western export controls. It's the creation of a powerful, resilient model for achieving technological self-sufficiency. It's about ensuring long-term economic stability and, potentially defining regional technological leadership for Southeast Asia and beyond.
That opening anecdote really hits it because it shows the real battle isn't in the clean rooms. It's out on the power lines.
It's on the grid.
So we need to figure out how this structural advantage actually works. Let's unpack it.
Let's do it.
We should probably start by shifting that scorecard we mentioned, comparing the growing electrical constraint facing the U.S. with this massive energy abundance strategy in China.
Good place to start. The two opposing poles.
Next, we can break down the actual policy, that core industrial strategy that explicitly marries AI development to energy as a lever for domestic tech.
Right, the how. The actual government documents and initiatives.
From there, let's dive into the nuts and bolts. The enormous infrastructure backbone, the aggressive pursuit of next-gen nuclear, massive renewables, all the stuff that makes the strategy physically possible.
The engineering and concrete behind the policy.
And then finally, let's pivot outward. See how this successful domestic AI plus infrastructure model is being packaged and exported into Southeast Asia through the digital Silk Road.
And creating these new opportunities for tech ecosystems in places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Vietnam. It's a fascinating extension of the domestic plan.
Okay, let's start with that scorecard. Electrical power versus computing power.
To really contextualize this, we have to define the playing field. Most strategic analysis suggests AI leadership rests on three critical interconnected pillars.
Right, what are they?
Computing power, which gets all the attention. Brain power, meaning talent. And electrical power. You ignore any one of those, and the whole thing just falls apart.
And right now, the global advantage is pretty mixed. The U.S. and its partners, Taiwan, South Korea, they hold a huge lead in the advanced components.
The sub-7 mm chips, the high bandwidth memory.
That's the Ferrari component we talked about. And even with all the progress they're making, Chinese manufacturers still have to rely on foreign supply chains for the most sophisticated hardware.
Or they resort to gray market channels, smuggling in specific high-end GPUs. It happens.
The financial markets tell the same story, don't they?
They absolutely do. The market cap of the key Western semiconductor players just dwarfs the comparable Chinese market leaders. And while the talent gap is narrowing, the U.S. still attracts and cultivates the majority of top-tier AI researchers.
So on two of the three pillars, computing power and talent, America has the lead.
A significant lead. But then you get to that third pillar.
Electrical power.
And that's where the whole equation changes. Here in the U.S., our computing age is being seriously, dangerously constrained by an electrical system that, frankly, is struggling to keep up.
And the demand from AI is just exploding.
The scale is hard to overstate. In 2024, data centers in the U.S. were consuming something like 4% of the national electricity supply.
Which doesn't sound like a crisis yet.
Right, it sounds manageable. But then you look at the growth trajectory. Driven almost entirely by AI workloads, that figure is projected to skyrocket. We could be looking at 12% of national consumption by just 2028.
12%? That's insane.
You're talking about adding the energy demand of dozens of millions of households in just a few years, all for one industry.
And our grid is just not ready for that kind of shock. It's hitting infrastructure bottlenecks hard.
It is. We're seeing major constraints everywhere, just finding available power, transmission limitations on an aging grid, and then the permitting.
The red tape. The endless delays.
And the local opposition. The classic NIMB why not in my backyard resistance to any new infrastructure.
Let's stick on that for a second. The red tape. We mentioned Virginia, the data center capital of the world. What's happening there is a perfect example.
It's the perfect counterpoint to the speed we see in China. Reports show that large facilities in Virginia are facing waits of up to 7 years.
7 years?
Just to get the necessary electricity hookups from the utility.
And this isn't the utility being slow for no reason. It's the whole system, right?
Exactly. The interconnection process, especially through grid operators like PJM Interconnection, is just completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of requests for massive power delivery.
A 7-year wait. In the life cycle of an AI model or a chip generation, that's an eternity.
It's multiple eternities. By the time that facility gets power, the chips it was designed to run will be museum pieces.
So what's the core of that delay? Is it building the data centers themselves or getting the power plants online to feed them?
It's both, and they're completely linked. The demand requires new power plants and new transmission lines, and that's where the bottleneck gets even tighter.
Because building a new power plant in the U.S. is a marathon.
It's a decathlon. It requires multi-year environmental reviews, then complex state and local permitting, and then you have potential lawsuits or referendums from local community groups who are worried about visual impact or noise.
So the infrastructure just cannot keep up with the hyper-accelerated timeline of AI.
Not even close. And this isn't just a technical footnote anymore, it's a C-suite problem.
We are seeing industry giants talking about this openly now. It's changing how they invest.
Absolutely. Look at Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. He's publicly stated that energy constraints are going to become a barrier to AI expansion before capital constraints do.
Just think about that. These companies have billions and billions of dollars ready to go, but they can't buy the one thing they need most: reliable bulk power.
It shows you how foundational power has become in this race. It's the ultimate speed limit on innovation.
Okay, so let's pivot. Let's look at the complete opposite approach: China's abundance strategy.
Right. Beijing seems to have recognized this a long, long time ago. They saw that energy access is the ultimate industrial policy lever, and they've been prioritizing abundance even before the AI boom.
And the speed of execution is, well, it's just staggering.
It's unmatched globally. They are expanding capacity across everything: coal, nuclear, and renewables, at a rate no one else can touch.
Just give us a sense of that scale.
Okay, in 2023 alone, the country added more than half of the global total of new renewable energy capacity.
Half of the world's new renewables in 1 year.
In one country. That's not just a big number. It's a strategic decision to flood the energy zone, to make sure that power supply is always elastic enough to absorb whatever new industrial demand comes online.
This aggressive construction creates a kind of resilience that we just don't have.
It does. Unlike in the U.S., where a new power plant is a decade-long battle, China can turn an industrial policy goal into a physical operating power plant on a rapid, standardized timeline.
And they just bypass all the local red tape and opposition that slows projects down here?
They have a much more centralized system for that. It allows them to avoid a lot of the decentralized bureaucratic delays and local resistance that plague big projects in other nations.
So what are the long-term projections? Does all this new capacity really give them that structural security?
It absolutely does. Some credible analyses suggest that by 2030, China could have an immense 400 gigawatts of stair generation capacity.
400 gigawatts, just to put that in perspective for you.
That is roughly 4 times the entire generating capacity of the United Kingdom, just sitting there as a surplus.
A surplus that's big enough to absorb the entire AI boom, the EV charging boom.
And whatever other high-tech industries come next, all without placing significant stress on their existing grid. That abundance, engineered through state policy and rapid execution, is the strategic counterweight to the American chip blade.
Okay, so we've established the foundation. China is engineering energy abundance at a speed no one can match. But infrastructure is just concrete and wires. The real power comes from the policies that direct its use.
Exactly.
How is this abundance being leveraged to foster that domestic technological self-sufficiency you mentioned?
This is where we get into the AI plus energy paradigm. And it's not accidental. It's all formalized in a national strategic plan.
A plan issued by who? What are the key bodies here?
It was jointly issued by 2 major bodies: the National Development and Reform Commission, the NDRC, which is their top macroeconomic manager, and the National Energy Administration, the NEA.
So the top economic planners and the top energy planners working together.
Which underscores how unified these goals are. It's not an energy policy with some economic benefits. It's a unified economic and energy strategy.
And what are the key goals, the key deliverables of this massive plan?
It lays out a very clear 2-phase timeline. The first goal is to create a basic innovation system for this AI energy integration by 2027.
And after that?
By 2030, the ambition scales up dramatically. They're aiming for their AI applications in the energy field to reach a globally leading level.
And what does that mean, globally leading?
It means having an advanced mechanism that coordinates computing power across the entire country with the national power supply in real time. Total integration.
That sounds like a massive technical challenge. What are the practical applications they're mandating to get there?
The scale of implementation is just breathtaking. The plan calls for launching 10 replicable demonstration projects and exploring 100 typical application scenarios.
Okay, so a lot of pilot programs.
But the critical part is this. It mandates the deployment of over 5 industry-specific AI models across the entire energy landscape.
Industry-specific models, what does that mean?
It means using tailored AI across the state grids, within the power generation sectors, coal, oil, gas, and throughout their energy storage systems. So, for example, using an AI to predict and prevent an equipment failure in a coal plant before it happens.
Or optimizing the schedule for wind farms to better match demand fluctuations.
Precisely. It's about embedding intelligence into every single part of the system.
That is a huge lift. But this high-level policy needs a geographical strategy to manage the sheer volume of compute demand. Is that where East Data, West Compute comes into play?
That is a geographical and logistical core of the entire strategy. It was launched in 2020, and it's designed to rationalize where compute capacity is located, based specifically on energy availability.
So how does that mechanism actually work? Where do they put the data centers?
It mandates the construction of 8 vast computing hubs in the western regions of China.
Places like Inner Mongolia, Gansu.
Exactly. These areas have plentiful, sparsely populated land and, most importantly, abundant renewable resources. Solar, wind, and access to stable hydropower.
And what kind of computing work goes on in these Western hubs?
They're intended to handle the less time-sensitive stuff. Things like less frequent access, data storage, batch processing, and the big AI training runs that can tolerate slightly longer network latency.
And what about the data that needs to be fast?
That's the other half of the plan. This infrastructure supports 10 data clusters in the eastern, highly populated coastal provinces. They focus on data that requires low latency and high network responsiveness, like e-commerce or financial transactions.
So it's a distributed network optimized for both performance and energy access.
Perfectly put.
The EDWC initiative also has a pretty significant green mandate, doesn't it? They seem to be explicitly tying this massive renewables expansion to the new computing capacity.
Yes, and this is a monumental commitment.
Yeah.
The policy goal for new data centers under this framework is aggressive. They have to be powered with 80% green energy by 2025.
80%. That is a massive shift from where they were.
A huge shift. Traditionally, around 70% of the electricity for data centers in China came from coal. So this directive, it shows a clear commitment to using their renewable expansion, especially in the West, to create a more sustainable tech footprint.
Okay, we've covered infrastructure and the location policy. Now let's get back to what feels like the economic cheat code we talked about in the intro, the strategic subsidy.
The strategic subsidy leverage. This is the mechanism that allows them to overcome that qualitative gap in chip performance.
So how does it actually work on the ground?
This is maybe the most fascinating and structurally important part of the whole strategy. Local governments, in coordination with the national plan, are reportedly offering an immense 50% discount on electricity costs to data centers.
A 50% discount. Energy is the single biggest operational cost for AI after you buy the hardware.
Right. Cutting that cost in half is transformative for any business.
But it's not an unconditional discount. There's a catch.
A very strategic catch. The massive subsidy is explicitly conditional on that data center, using domestic, Chinese-manufactured chips.
So it creates an immediate economic incentive.
An overwhelming one. If you're a data center operator, you have a choice. You can use a superior foreign chip that runs on expensive, unsubsidized power. Or you can use a domestic, maybe less powerful chip that operates at half the electricity cost.
The choice becomes pretty obvious. The domestic tech suddenly becomes not just viable, but maybe even more profitable.
Overwhelmingly viable. If your operational cost, your OpEx, is cut in half, that can dramatically compensate for a higher initial capital cost or a deficit in raw performance.
It completely reframes the competition. It's not a sprint for engineering perfection anymore.
It becomes a marathon of economic attrition. Whoever can run the cheapest wins. It shifts the entire strategic terrain away from a pure battle of engineering genius, where the U.S. has the lead towards a war of energy costs and industrial self-sufficiency.
By subsidizing the biggest operational expense, Beijing basically levels the playing field for its own hardware companies.
It does more than level it. It creates a huge captive domestic market, which accelerates their technological catch-up through sheer scale and forced usage.
That structural intervention is incredibly powerful. But let's flip the coin. AI is clearly consuming a huge amount of energy. Is it only a consumer? Or is it also making the energy system itself more efficient? Is there a virtuous cycle?
That virtuous cycle is absolutely central to their long-term vision. AI isn't just a power drain. It's being integrated as a sophisticated tool for optimization and for accelerating the energy transition.
Can we actually quantify that efficiency gain? Is there data on this?
Yes, there is. Empirical economic analysis confirms this positive feedback loop. There's regional data from China covering the decade from 2011 to 2021 that shows a clear correlation.
What's the correlation?
An increase in the number of AI enterprises in a region significantly reduces the energy consumption per unit of GDP in that same region.
So more AI companies means a more energy efficient economy.
Exactly. It demonstrates that AI is actively accelerating the energy transition by promoting efficiency gains across the whole economic structure.
How does that actually happen? What are the mechanisms?
The analysis points to two primary channels. First, AI facilitates the upgrading of the regional industrial structure.
What does that mean, upgrading the structure?
Think of AI tools optimizing manufacturing processes in heavy industry, reducing material waste, streamlining supply chains. It makes the entire industrial base less energy intensive.
And the second channel?
The second is that AI actively promotes the growth of the digital economy itself, things like cloud services, e-commerce, and that part of the economy is inherently less energy intensive per unit of output compared to traditional heavy industry.
And I'm guessing these effects are more pronounced in certain areas.
They are. The effects are most pronounced in highly urbanized developed regions like the Yangtze River Economic Belt, where you have a concentration of both high-tech manufacturing and the digital economy.
So the key isn't just using AI, but fully integrating it into the core systems of the economy. Let's look at how that integration works across the energy value chain itself.
It's a full spectrum approach. It touches every single step, from resource extraction to final delivery.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, upstream.
In the upstream sector, for oil, gas, minerals, AI is used to enhance geological exploration and reserve assessment. It makes the extraction process more precise, more efficient, and less wasteful.
Then midstream, the power plants and the grid.
In the midstream, which is the generation and transmission facilities, AI models are improving supply and demand matching. They can predict energy needs minute by minute, and crucially, they enable predictive maintenance.
So they can predict when a turbine or a transformer is about to fail.
Exactly, before it happens, which keeps the grid and the power plants running reliably and reduces incredibly costly downtime.
And then finally downstream to the end user.
In the downstream sector, which is distribution and services, the tech strengthens response and early warning systems. It can anticipate the impact of extreme weather or network anomalies. The entire grid becomes safer, more reliable, and more responsive. The goal is just to maximize efficiency and minimize loss at every single stage.
That kind of seamless integration, though, it requires a colossal and resilient physical infrastructure.
It does.
And as we said, the biggest hurdle for that 80% green energy mandate is intermittency. Solar and wind are not constant. Data centers need power 247. That volatility is a major technological problem.
It's a huge stability challenge. Renewables are inherently unpredictable. A cloud passes over a solar farm, the wind drops, and the supply fluctuates. For a data center running sensitive AI training, even a tiny fluctuation can cause errors and massive losses.
So how is China trying to solve this?
They're using a two-pronged renewable strategy.
Okay, what are the two prongs?
First, they're just expanding the overall green energy grid on a massive scale, which indirectly increases the proportion of clean energy available everywhere. And second, and this is more specific to the EDWC, they are directly wiring renewable capacity into the power systems of dedicated data centers.
And there are pilot projects for this direct wiring already, right?
Yes. The Horinger New District in Inner Mongolia is a great example. Through direct connections and specialized local grid management, that district has managed to achieve a green electricity substitution rate of 43%.
43% is a big number, but it also highlights the challenge.
It does. It means 57% is still coming from the broader grid, which is often coal-dominated, especially when the sun isn't shining.
Which brings us squarely to energy storage. You need massive battery capacity to manage those 12-hour nighttime gaps.
The required scale is truly staggering. Let's just run the battery math for their projected 2030 energy demand. China's data centers are expected to consume about 380 billion kilowatt hours a year by 2030. To provide that reliably, you need a continuous output of 43.4 gigawatts.
43.4 gigawatts, 247. Now, if you want to bridge the daily dark periods with batteries, let's say 12 hours of charging, 12 hours of discharging, with a typical 10% energy loss, what kind of battery capacity are we talking about?
Just to cover those daily solar fluctuations, China would need 573 gigawatt hours of battery capacity.
573 gigawatt hours? That's a volume of energy storage that's just hard to comprehend.
It is. A single GWH can power hundreds of thousands of homes for an hour. So 573 GWH represents a physical, logistical, and financial commitment that just dwarfs anything seen anywhere else in the world.
And even if they can manufacture the batteries, which, let's be honest, they're a world leader in battery production, so they probably can, the harder challenge is integrating all that capacity into the grid, isn't it?
That is the deeper technological hurdle. China excels at battery production, but effectively developing the smart grid architecture to manage this colossal volume of intermittent energy and storage is an even greater challenge than making the batteries themselves.
What does that require?
It requires incredibly complex management systems, dynamic grid balancing, and a huge expansion of their ultra-high voltage, or UHV, transmission lines to move all that power from the west to the east efficiently.
And are they on track to build that?
This is one of the few areas where development might not be fast enough to fully catch up with the surging power demand from AI. It's a huge bottleneck.
So batteries are essential, but not a complete solution. What about non-intermittent renewables, hydropower?
Hydropower is a critical, stable resource, and we see this in action. The first zero-emission data center in China is powered by electricity from the Three Gorges Dam. It's a fantastic anchor source.
And there's a lot more potential there.
A lot. Estimates suggest that untapped hydropower resources could potentially provide up to 30% of the nation's total energy needs.
But even hydropower, which we think of as rock solid, has shown some volatility recently with climate change.
It has. Hydroelectric generation across China has actually fallen by 1% over the last 5 years, even though they increased capacity by 18% in that same time.
How is that possible?
Severe, persistent droughts. They reduce water levels, which limits the operating capacity of the dams. So relying solely on hydro for those Western data centers is becoming risky.
This brings us to the real dark horse in this infrastructure race. The technology that is arguably the most strategically important for the EDWC, but is often left out of the public marketing.
Nuclear energy.
Nuclear.
It's foundational to their strategy because it provides high-density, high-output, non-intermittent power. The scale of China's ambition here is just incredible.
How incredible?
To illustrate, the State Council approved 11 new conventional reactors in a single day. back in August of 2024.
11 reactors in one day. That alone just speaks volumes about the national priority.
It's a pace of deployment that is globally unmatched.
But there's a problem. Conventional nuclear plants need vast amounts of water for cooling. How do you reconcile that with the EDWC mandate to build these computing hubs in the water-scarce Western interior?
That is the core conflict. And solving it is where China's technological leadership in next-generation nuclear comes into play. They are leading the world in developing and piloting advanced nuclear technologies specifically designed to overcome these geographic and cooling constraints.
So they're not just building old designs, they're innovating for strategic placement.
Exactly. What are some of these cutting-edge designs?
Well, they've built successful pilot projects for a whole range of them. You have sodium-cooled fast neutron reactors, which use liquid sodium as a coolant and are much more efficient.
You have liquid salt or gas-cooled thorium reactors, which use alternative fuel cycles and vastly reduce water dependence. And then you have small modular reactors, or SMRs.
The SMRs are the smaller, mass-producible ones.
Right. They can be situated closer to demand centers, they need less infrastructure, and critically, many use passive cooling systems that require significantly less, or even no, water.
And one of the plants approved in that big August batch seems designed specifically to solve this Western cooling problem.
It is a direct answer to the EDWC mandate. The Zhuhai Phase I reactor is set to be the world's first commercial-scale, high-temperature, gas-cooled pebble bed reactor.
And that technology was developed with this exact problem in mind.
Explicitly. The technology was researched and developed with the specific goal of eventually building a fleet of power plants in water-scarce interior regions. The gas cooling is ideal for inland sites, directly supporting the mission of powering Western data centers.
Given how critical nuclear is, why is it so often just lumped into other sources in the public narrative about green computing?
It's likely a matter of public sensitivity. After the Fukushima meltdown in 2011, there was a strong wave of public resistance in China, which led the government to pause new nuclear approvals for a while.
And even after that pause was lifted,
Mass protests have successfully halted specific inland projects. There was a reactor planned for years in Jiangning that appears to have been abandoned and converted into a solar farm site. So by minimizing the public discussion of nuclear while massively expanding the program, they manage public perception while still securing that essential baseload power.
that's a fascinating layer. But even if the new specialized reactors aren't immediately powering the West, the conventional nuclear expansion near the coast still helps green the whole grid.
That is the crucial overarching point. Every large, stable power source added anywhere on the grid, coastal, nuclear, eastern solar farms, helps clean the entire national power supply.
And the Western data centers draw from that national grid.
Exactly. They draw power via those ultra-high voltage transmission lines. So as the overall grid is systematically greened by these massive additions of solar, hydro, and nuclear, the power reaching the Western computing hubs automatically gets cleaner. This systematic engineering of energy abundance is the fundamental, non-negotiable prerequisite for their entire AI strategy.
Okay, so we've analyzed the domestic strategy, the policy, the subsidies, the infrastructure. Now we need to recognize that this blueprint isn't just for China. It's being actively exported.
It is. It's being expanded through the Digital Silk Road, or DSR, which is a key strategic pillar of the Belt and Road Initiative.
And that's all driven by the success and scale of their own domestic digital economy.
Which reached, something like $6.37 trillion by 2022? It's enormous.
So the DSR isn't just about selling Chinese tech, it's about exporting the entire development model.
Precisely. The DSR's mission is systematic. It's designed to strategically fill the digital gap in developing countries. They upgrade the essential digital infrastructure, they promote Chinese standards and solutions, and they integrate these regions into the larger Asia-Pacific network.
So they're offering a package deal: infrastructure, energy solutions, and training.
It's a complete systematic approach.
Where is this export most concentrated?
Southeast Asia is the most fertile ground. You have geographical proximity, existing trade ties, and a very high demand for infrastructure upgrades.
And is it reaching the whole region?
Every single country in Southeast Asia has been a recipient of these investments. But three nations in particular, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, collectively receive over 52% of all DSR projects in the region. They're the strategic hubs.
And what specific sectors are they investing in? Is it all just data centers?
Data centers are key, but the investment is clustered across 5 interdependent areas. You have telecom, especially 5G. You have the data center construction, And then you have fintech services and e-commerce platforms.
So it's a full-stack digital ecosystem. They build the infrastructure, and then they immediately put it to use with Chinese digital services.
Exactly.
Now, the DSR works a bit differently from the old Belt and Road, which was all state-owned enterprises. Who's leading the charge here?
The DSR is primarily spearheaded by private Chinese tech giants. About 79% of the projects are led by companies like Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, and ZTE.
That's still operating with state support.
Oh, absolutely. They have significant state policy support and financing to help them expand. And it's strategic. It expands the global market for their tech companies, and it reinforces China's technological leadership by providing solutions that are often better tailored to the cost and scalability needs of developing economies.
Let's get into the concrete infrastructure. How deep is the penetration in terms of data centers and connectivity?
The investment is massive. Chinese tech companies have built an estimated 43 data centers across Southeast Asia. They're concentrated in key markets. Singapore has the largest share, then Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand.
And alongside that, they're building out the 5G networks.
Which is essential for data flow and mobile AI applications. Huawei has been instrumental here. They set up a 5G smart hospital in Thailand, for example, focusing on remote medicine, and they provided smart railway solutions for the crucial China-Laos Railway.
So they're integrating digital tech directly into regional logistics and trade.
Right into the physical economy.
To make all these regional data centers work, though, you need connectivity. What projects are physically weaving the region together?
Connectivity relies on building both cross-land and submarine fiber optic cables. Chinese companies like HMN Tech and China Unicom are heavily invested.
What are some of the key projects?
There's the SEA H2X submarine cable, which started construction in 2022 and links the region to Asia. And there's investment in the Asia Direct cable. These projects are all strategically aimed at integrating Southeast Asian countries into the larger Asia-Pacific network to provide the high-speed data transfer they need.
And beyond the physical cables, there's also formal institutional cooperation to standardize everything.
That institutionalization is key to cementing long-term influence. You have formal mechanisms like the Action Plan on implementing the Asian-China Partnership on Digital Economy Cooperation.
So they're setting up shared goals and regulatory framework.
Exactly. And you also have things like the China-Asian Information Harbor, or CAH.
What's the function of the CAIH?
It was set up specifically to transform China's Guangxi region into a digital hub, connecting China and ASEAN. It's a platform for shared digital services, talent exchange, and joint tech development. These mechanisms formalize the collaboration and promote the adoption of Chinese tech standards.
So for a developing economy in the region like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, what's the ultimate appeal of this AI plus energy model they're being offered through the DSR?
The appeal is systemic resilience and accelerated development. The DSR offers a comprehensive full-stack package. Developing nations often struggle with huge capital requirements, inadequate power infrastructure, and a skills gap. China's model addresses all three at once.
But how does it specifically apply the AI plus energy lessons to a country like Indonesia or Vietnam?
It provides the technological foundation, the data centers, the 5G, and combines it with the policy lessons on how to manage the immense energy consumption. China is essentially demonstrating and funding how to use advanced industrial policy, backed by massive state-guided infrastructure, to create that structural energy support for tech growth.
So it's the infrastructure, the energy solution, and the training.
The full package. They provide the digital infrastructure, link it to renewable energy solutions that are often financed by Chinese partners, and combine it with crucial tech training through programs like Huawei's Seeds for the Future. It lets these economies leapfrog traditional development hurdles and leverage advanced industrial policy for their own technological advancement.
To synthesize the journey we've taken today, it feels like the central finding is that this competition for AI supremacy is about way more than just who makes the fastest chip.
It's about a deep, strategic, and highly coordinated linkage between technology policy and national infrastructure strategy.
The U.S. has the lead in silicon quality, but that advantage is being structurally limited by these electrical constraints.
Exactly. And China, by contrast, has recognized that massive, subsidized, and strategically guided electrical capacity, fueled by these unprecedented renewable and advanced nuclear buildouts, is the necessary foundation.
It's the foundation for achieving long-term scalable AI success and self-reliance, no matter what temporary constraints they have in their domestic hardware.
And that strategic integration, it's not just a domestic policy, it's now a model being packaged and exported via the digital Silk Road, offering Southeast Asian nations a comprehensive path toward their own regional technological resilience.
What's truly transformative here is the realization that the largest bottleneck in this modern high-tech race is one of the oldest infrastructural challenges we have: reliable bulk electricity. The most significant innovation on the global stage right now might not be the creation of the next advanced chip, but the creation of an efficient, massive, and nationally coordinated power system that's capable of running that technology at scale. By embedding AI into the entire energy value chain, from exploration to predictive maintenance to demand response, China is transforming its energy sector from a simple utility into a sophisticated technological asset, securing a foundational position in the next era of industrial policy.